Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something that I brought up in a recent podcast. It's also something that I've said before, and I want to reiterate because it's such a popular practice. But the truth is, you'll see a lot of amazing coaches who do say the same thing I'm saying here. So I don't want to make people think that I'm being a contrarian because believe me, I'm not the only person saying this. And it just doesn't follow basic biomechanics. And that is this idea that people need to do heavy partials to get used to lifting heavier weight, or that it carries over completely to their full range of motion exercises. And the truth is, it doesn't. Now, does this mean you can't get bigger and stronger while doing partials? No, of course not. Of course you can. Is it ideal? Probably not. All right, and here's the idea that people oftentimes use with the partials. They're like, well, if you lift a really heavy weight through your sticking point, but again, you got to ask, why do they have a sticking point there? All right, but they're like, if you can lift a heavy weight through the sticking point heavier than your max, you'll be able to blast right through it. And you need to get used to handling the heavier weight, so on and so forth. All right, there's some problems with this theory. Keeping in mind, a lot of this comes from the equipped powerlifting world. And I'm not talking about bands or chains, by the way. That's different, and those can have their own applications for speed strength and stuff. But when we're talking about doing heavy work, again, for the idea of lifting a heavier weight through a range of motion you could actually lift on the exercise, locking out or getting used to holding it. All right, first of all, setting aside the equipped lifting, because in that case, a person who benches 500 roll might be benching 800 in a shirt. And, he probably should get used to having that in his hand, since the shirt is unloading a lot of the weight at what would be the hard part of the lift anyways for most of us. And it's hundreds of pounds difference. But as a general rule, it's not going to matter for raw lifters. A perfect example, let's say we take an exercise that you have never maxed on in your life. You've never maxed on in your life, and you build up to where that exercise for a full range of motion, you can do 300 pounds for 6 or 7 reps, maybe 8 reps, okay? Let's say 8 reps. I don't know, it could be an incline bench. It could be a seal row. I don't care. Something you've never maxed on in your whole life, and you've never touched over 300 pounds on it. Do you really think that until you get used to holding 315, that 315 would be hard for you? Or do you think you could walk in and hit 3 or 4 reps with it easy without probably straining too much? I think the latter. You know what I think? I think any exercise that you've never gone above 300 pounds in your life, if you can do 7 or 8 full range of motion reps on that exercise, you could walk in and grind your way through 350 with no problems. 50 pounds heavier than you've ever touched. I think you'd be able to do it. In fact, I'm absolutely certain of it. Do you need to get used to it to do that? No, of course not. How many of you out there have gone in and hit a 20-pound PR on a deadlift or a squat without having touched that weight in your whole life? Right? I don't know, let's call it 500 pounds. How many of you up there have had a 500-pound max and then built your 500-pound max up to where you could do 2 or 3 reps with it and just walked in and hit 520 or 525 without ever having had to feel or lock out 520 or 525 in your life? All of you are like, of course I've done that. Everyone has. It's exactly the point. Guess what? You don't have to get used to the feel of a weight to be strong enough to lift it if you have built the strength to do so. Okay? We understand? Anybody not understand this? Number 2, the fact that you could lift the heavier weight. Let's say you're doing the lockout work. Let's say that your 1 rep max on a lift is 315. I don't care what lift it is. It could be your deadlift. It could be your overhead press. I don't care. I don't care. Your bench press. 315 is the most you've ever benched. And let's say they're like, well, we're going to train from right at our sticking point, and we're going to do a triple with 365, and then you find that you can grind off of boards or pins or whatever. You can do lockout work with, and you can get 3 reps at 365. You see the problem here? But then it's like, but I can do that for 3 reps through there. But then I stick with 325. At that point, when my max is 315, I can't get through that same point with 325. Yeah, because you're already strong enough to lift the weight from that point. It's not that you need to get stronger at lifting the weight there. It's that you're weak at your weakest point. And your weakest point for most lifts is close to the bottom. And if you're not strong enough to get it moving through there, you use up all of your strength. You use up muscle fibers. You're fatiguing muscle fibers before you get to the sticking point. So you can do that board work or whatever with a 365 for a triple, and you still get stuck with 325 when you have to do the normal exercise. See, getting used to that 365 didn't do anything because you didn't get strong enough where the mechanical tension is greatest on the muscle. Oftentimes we have sticking points because we run out of strength earlier in the lift. We get to the points of the greatest mechanical tension and we just don't have the muscle or the strength left to keep the weight moving once we get through there. We're using up our strength at the hardest point. And then if we don't have to do the hardest point, of course a heavier weight. I'm like, well, we can do that. But it's not carrying over, is it? And how oftentimes are you able to, with those partials, find the best advantageous position to get it started off that board or that pen or that block or whatever, right? You can get that perfect angle. Well, the problem is when you have to do it for the whole lift, what happens? You can't get through that same point because you're fatigued. You're fatigued from trying to move it through the hardest point, and then your bar path is totally different. You can't get to those perfect advantageous angles. So then it's still not helping, is it? It's not even helping with the technique because you still can't get to that perfect sweet spot. It's technically a different lift from that point up. A lot of times your rack pulls, your board work or whatever, they're not even following the same movement or bar path as when you're doing the main lift through that top. So a lot of times you can find a better leverage that you wouldn't be able to find. And it's still not going to carry over. Okay? Now, is it to say that you don't gain some muscle and strength from doing them? Of course you do. I mean, you're moving some heavy ass weights. Of course you're getting a response. Of course you're gaining some strength. But is it the best option? And I think the answer is usually no. Are there exceptions? Yes. But I think by and large, if we just get stronger all the way around, we get stronger at our weakest points, we get faster, more powerful out of the bottom of movements because we build the mobility and strength to do so, our maxes will go up without having to handle those weights ahead of time. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.